Hi, this is FUAD ABASOV, a broker with 𝑭𝒖𝒂𝒅 Realty, and this is your monthly real estate statistics. Sales activity remained muted in April as new listings continued to rise. Home sales were down in comparison to April of 2023, when there was a temporary resurgence in market activity. Many thought Toronto's housing market was heading for a spring surge, but it seems to have hit a standoff instead. Generally speaking, buyers were benefiting from ample choice in the GTA resale market in April. As a result, there was little movement in selling prices compared to last year. Mortgage rates are still high, and it remains difficult for a lot of people to break into the market. But for those who can, it's the first spring market in some time where they can shop around, take their time, and exercise some bargaining power. Given how much demand is out there, it's hard to say how long it will last. In the spring of 2023, there was a flood of sales in Toronto's market as the Bank of Canada paused rate hikes. This April, detached single-family homes saw a dip in sales of more than 7%, indicating that buyers in that segment are taking a wait-and-see approach. This year, the language from the bank is less definitive, cooling sales activity. New listings continued to pile up last month and are now 47% higher than last April, according to the Toronto Real Estate Board. Despite the lack of activity, prices continue to hover near an all-time high, and elevated interest rates are keeping buyers at bay. Condominium market also experienced 6.5% dip in sales and is presenting some opportunity for first-time homebuyers. However, many aren't entering the market yet, as affordability remains the biggest barrier. With condo inventory piling up and prices starting to tick downwards, those property types must become a popular option for new entrants to the market. And now, let's take a closer look at detached home sales in Toronto and surrounding areas. An average selling price of a detached home in Toronto in April was $1.81 million. Practically no difference compared to April of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 4.5%. Inventory increased by 36%. It takes on average 14 days for a detached home to be sold in Toronto today. In Vaughan, average selling price of a detached home in April was $1.84 million, 1.5% increase compared to April of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 20%. The amount of new listings increased by 33%. On average, it takes 17 days for a detached home to be sold in Vaughan today. In Richmond Hill, average selling price of detached home in April was $2.11 million, 12.8% increase compared to April of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 11.5%. The amount of new listings increased by 51%. On average, it takes 18 days for a detached home to be sold in Richmond Hill today. Average price of a detached home in Mississauga in April was $1.63 million, 4% increase compared to sales of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 1.2%. The new inventory increased by 67%. On average, it takes 2 weeks for a detached home to be sold in Mississauga today. In Markham, average selling price of detached home in April was $1.82 million, 3.7% decrease compared to April of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 22%. Inventory increased by 17%. On average, it takes 13 days for a detached home to be sold in Markham today. Newmarket, average selling price of detached home in April was $1.41 million, 5.7% increase compared to April of last year. The amount of sold properties went down by 24%. The amount of new listings went up by 43%. On average, it takes 18 days for a detached home to be sold in Newmarket today. In Aurora, average selling price of detached home compared to last year went up by 6.6% and was sitting at $1.72 million. The amount of sold properties went down by 27% compared to last April. The new inventory increased by 53%. On average, it takes 2 weeks for a detached home to be sold in Aurora today. Average selling price of detached home in Innisfil in April was $928,000, 1.5% increase compared to April of last year. The amount of sales went down by 47%. The amount of listings also went down by 6.6%. On average, it takes almost 1 month for a detached home to be sold in Innisfil today. King City only saw 6 homes sold, and the average selling price in April was $1.96 million, 15% decrease compared to April of last year. The amount of new listings went up by 8%. On average, it takes 33 days for a detached home to be sold in King City today. In Bradford, average selling price of a detached home in April was $1.26 million, 5% increase compared to sales in last April. The amount of sold properties went down by 40%. However, the amount of new listings increased by 51%. On average, it takes 18 days for a detached home to be sold in Bradford today. Milton, average selling price of detached home in April was $1.35 million, 1.8% decrease compared to April of last year. The amount of sales went down by 6.7%. Inventory increased by 43%. On average, it takes 17 days for the detached home to be sold in Milton today. Stoufville, average selling price of detached home in April was $1.63 million, 5.3% decrease compared to April of last year. The amount of sales went down by 19%. Inventory increased by 56%. On average, it takes 24 days for a detached home to be sold in Stoufville today. Average selling price of detached home in Barrie in April was $916,000, 7.4% increase compared to April of last year. Amount of sales went down by 48%. Inventory also went down by 23%. It takes on average 3 weeks for a detached home to be sold in Barrie today. In Oakville, average selling price of detached home in April was $2.16 million, 7% increase compared to April of last year. The amount of sales went down by almost 12%. The amount of new listings increased by 51%. On average, it takes 17 days for a detached home to be sold in Oakville today. Market conditions aren't tightening up yet, but once the Bank of Canada cuts rates, there is an expectation of increased buyer activity in the last 6 months of the year.
If you'd like to receive your own personalized sales report about home sales in your neighborhood, please call me at 647-801-3401 or email me at sold@fuadhomes.com. Thanks for watching and see you next month.